Hey VW lovers, time for another episode of Day in the Life of Vintage Classic Specialist. It is Thursday, June 20th. Anyway, so Thursday here by myself, so let's talk about what I worked on. Pretty much I focused on the 55 Beetle today. I don't remember if I went into this yesterday or not. We're trying to figure out what wheels we can run on this car, and the owner would really like to run some wide tires on the front, like even a 195. With these mobile wagon wheels, which is what he wants to use, the 5.5s just aren't really going to work. I mean, even the wheel is already pretty much flush with the body, and then by the time we put a tire on it, it's not going to work. So we're probably going to go with the 4.5s, which will allow us to run, I think we can fit a 185/55 on there, which is it's a decent amount of tire for a Beetle, but we'll see. Anyway, so owner came in and we kind of talked about wheels and tires this morning, so he's got some decisions to make. But in the meantime, I put the rear suspension together the rest of the way, got the adjustable spring plates all on. They were kind of a pain in the ass, but managed to slog my way through it. So the whole back is all together now. And then the other thing was he had a rear sway bar on here. It's an MP kit, and at some point his links, which you see right there, broke. So I was able to buy just the links themselves, this hardware that you see right here. I was able to buy that and put it on with the existing sway bar, which he already obviously had mounted and stuff on there. So yeah, I think it was like, I don't know, $65 for pretty much all new hardware to go with his existing sway bar. So I got that all mounted back up, put his shocks back on, and so yeah, the back of this car is pretty much buttoned up except the drums. So again, we're switching this car to wide 5, which is of course appropriate for this car. That was why we swapped out the front disc brake kit and put on a narrowed beam, hoping to again get a wider tire on here and then go from the 4-lug that he had back to wide 5, which is super cool looking and correct for this car. So his back brakes, those of you that watch the channel regularly may know, his back brakes are a little weird. He's got rear backing plates, and pretty much the whole brake assembly is off like a 68 and later car. So they're 40 millimeter wide shoes, and everything is completely different. You can't just slap a wide 5 drum on there because the brake shoes are totally different width. Everything's basically different. So the trick was to try and figure out a way that we can convert the back of this thing to wide 5 while keeping the brakes that he already has, which when he first brought the car in, one of the first things I did, or he had me do, was to go through the rear brakes. So his rear brakes are all brand new. So we didn't really want to toss all that out. So then the challenge is to figure out a way to get a drum on the back of this thing that can use wide 5. So there's a couple options. One is off a VW Thane, and I did a lot of research on those, and it seems like they push the wheel out like half an inch or something. I think one of the viewers of my channel commented on that, and then I've kind of seen that also mentioned on maybe some forums and stuff. CSP in Germany makes a drum, which I bought from CIP1 in Canada, that's supposedly for converting, or not supposedly, it is for converting a 4-lug car, so a later car, to a wide 5 pattern. And so this is the correct width for the 40 millimeter shoes. It adds very little offset as far as the mating surface here for the wheel. But the trick is that the height of the snout here, or the depth of the spline, it's made for a 4-lug car, which of course has a longer spline than an early 5-lug car. And so basically this thing slides right on the rear axles, but when you do, there's like maybe that much thread showing. So not nearly enough to get the big bolt on there and have enough room for the cotter pin. So I took a bunch of measurements of these drums and tried to figure out where the thinnest point is on this drum. It turns out it's about right here. And what we need to do is we need to machine this down another about a half inch, actually closer to 6/10 of an inch, in order to have enough of the splined axle sticking out where the nut will go on properly and we'll be able to put a cotter pin in and so on. So took a bunch of measurements. The thinnest spot on here, even if we machine it down by about 6/10 of an inch, the thinnest area will still be half an inch thick, and then everywhere around that will be much, much thicker. So I have zero concern about strength. So I think we're going to take this to, or I'm going to take these to a machine shop tomorrow and see if he can turn this down by about that much. And then these should slide right on and bolt right up and be perfect. So he gets to retain the thicker rear shoes, the 40 millimeter pads, or brake shoes rather, and go back to 5 lugs. So, you know, in hindsight, we were talking about it. It might have made more sense to just kind of abandon all this and put a disc brake kit on. But again, when the car came in initially, he just wanted me to kind of like go through the brakes and make sure they weren't leaking. They were leaking, so I rebuilt everything. And then, you know, he had these other things in mind that he wanted to do to the car and decided to go ahead and do them. And the main one of those, again, was to go to wide 5 everywhere. So we're trying to kind of preserve the work that's been done here already as far as rebuilding these rear brakes. And, you know, honestly, drum brakes on the back of a Beetle are fine. There's very little braking power going on at the back of the car. And then again, these are wider brake shoes than what would have came on the car. So it's fine. And we'll end up with wide 5 front and back, and it's going to look bitchin'. And the car is going to handle good too, especially front and rear sway bar, which is what I run on my red car, the autocross, street and autocross car. And despite what everyone tells you about not putting a sway bar on these cars, to me, it's actually a really good combination, especially if the car is low enough that can take advantage of the rear traction that you get when you lower these things. So anyway, that is almost it for today. The other thing that happened today was we had Octavio's team make a custom front trunk liner for the 71 Ghia. Came out really, really nice. And so that is done. And for real, that is actually all that happened today. Actually, nope, almost jumped the gun there. So intern Jacob today worked on the carburetor, which is here in a bag somewhere. I think that's it right there. So he cleaned it. He did it in the ultrasonic cleaner, got it all made pretty, all the hardware stripped down and de-rusted. So that stuff will be going to zinc plating in the not too distant future. So for real now, that's it. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you again soon. Good night.